Welcome to Zodiac Talks Tarot. Today we turn our attention to Sagittarius under the banner Out with the Old, In with the New, and I open this conversation not as an entertainer but as a seasoned researcher who has spent decades tracing the subtle threads between astrology, society, and the human psyche. What I bring is a careful blending of empirical observation, psychological nuance, novelist's empathy, and a whisper of Buddhist practicality to help translate celestial nudges into actionable inner work. Sagittarius, you are often mistaken for the eternal social butterfly, the one who laughs first, asks hard questions later, and treats life like a perpetual book tour. But beneath that kinetic charm lives a deep appetite for truth and meaning, and right now the cosmos is asking you to do something deceptively radical, to clean house, to make choices that honor your evolving value system, and to stop mistaking motion for progress. This is a season of release, renewal, and recalibration that I like to frame as the architecture of maturation. Think of it as learning to build a more reliable compass rather than simply learning new routes to the same old places. Emotionally, this looks less like melodrama and more like a necessary inventory, the kind of quiet but honest accounting that asks which attachments sustain you and which merely occupy space in your inner home. You feel more than people assume, you just have perfected the art of moving before feelings turn into obligations. Yet there comes a point when avoidance turns into accumulation, and the universe, with the patience of a strict but kind teacher, will introduce small crises precisely to force clarity, an overdue conversation, a budget line that won't reconcile, a relationship pattern that keeps recycling old disappointments. Speak your truth, yes, but let your speech be tempered by the wisdom time has given you. Sagittarian bluntness is glorious when it cuts through confusion, but it becomes liability when it severs bridges you might later wish to recross. In practical terms, this moment favors strategy over spontaneity. Your natural impulse to leap can be honored if it is supported by a scaffold, a modest financial plan, clearer boundaries, and a realistic timeline for the projects you adore. You are not being asked to stop adventuring. You are being asked to finance your adventures in ways that do not leave you emotionally or materially depleted. In the domain of love, whether you are flirting with a promising new presence or tending a long-term bond, the invitation is to slow the tempo enough to cultivate trust. Romantic chemistry is intoxicating, but durability requires the patience of a gardener, not the bravado of a showman. Family matters now call for both compassion and discernment. You may be asked to offer steadiness to someone rebuilding after their own collapse, and the Buddhist lesson here is simple and practical. Offer help without attachment to outcomes. Preserve your center while you extend your hand. Professionally, the stars encourage disciplined expansion. Your ideas are fertile, your charisma persuasive, and your work will most benefit from systems that allow passion to translate into sustained output. Think less about dramatic exits and more about strategic pivots that conserve capital and reputation. Humor, of course, remains your secret ingredient. The world is easier to transform when you can laugh at how often you misread your own map, and a well-timed self-deprecating quip often disarms tension better than eloquent argument. Yet beneath the jokes lies a deeper, almost novelistic responsibility. You are being called to author a new chapter of yourself with integrity, to close doors that no longer serve and to set the table for what is genuinely generative. For those of you who resonate with the idea of being among the chosen ones, understand that label not as magical entitlement but as recognition of your recurring role as a catalyst. You encounter extremes because you are built to bridge them, to learn in public, and to RET. Boundaries. For anyone who studies the human mind or the movement of the planets with any seriousness, are never simply walls, they are the quiet architecture of a life lived with intention. In psychology, we describe them as the invisible fences that preserve one's emotional energy, yet in astrology they carry a far more nuanced function. They mark the threshold at which a fire sign stops burning indiscriminately and begins to burn with purpose. Buddhism frames this same concept as self-respect expressed through non-attachment, the kind of gentle but firm recognition that you can love others without surrendering your own center. And for Sagittarius, boundaries are not merely recommended, they are absolutely essential, even if you historically treat them the way you treat instruction manuals, with a mixture of curiosity, impatience, and the vague hope that intuition alone will carry you through. Sagittarius is built with a generous engine. You give because it feels natural, because you genuinely want others to feel the wide horizon of possibility that you see so instinctively. But generosity without discernment can lead you into situations where your emotional real estate, your inner acreage, gets occupied by tenants who do not pay rent, fix leaks, or even water the metaphorical plants. You let people stay long past the expiration date of their contribution simply because you hope they'll grow. And while that optimism is admirable, it is not sustainable. Today's energy calls you to step into a more mature version of yourself, one who recognizes that protecting your peace is not an act of withdrawal but an act of stewardship. This shift does not come without discomfort. You may notice that a relationship you once considered effortless now feels uneven. You may realize that you have been the one driving the connection, planning, listening, supporting, while the other person has been coasting along like a passenger who keeps changing the radio but never offers gas money. Saying no, establishing limits, or simply stepping back might feel like a betrayal of your nature. But in truth, it is the opposite. You are honoring the part of yourself that has been whispering for years that you deserve reciprocity, not just admiration, partnership, not just presence. The moment you begin drawing boundaries, your inner world starts becoming less chaotic and more coherent. You will likely feel a mixture of liberation and guilt. Liberation because you are finally acting in alignment with your emotional truth, guilt because you have been conditioned to equate boundaries with selfishness. But if you stay with the process, if you breathe through the awkwardness and trust the intelligence of your discomfort, you will find that boundaries do not shrink your heart, they refine it. They ensure that your warmth flows toward the people who can receive it, reciprocate it, and grow with you rather than drain you. The best analogy comes from storytelling. If your life were a movie, this is the moment the hero stops letting secondary characters hijack the plot. You would never watch an adventure film where the protagonist's best friend spends 20 minutes discussing their grocery list while the hero nods politely, yet somehow you've tolerated similar imbalances in your own life. Today marks the rewrite, the moment you reclaim your narrative and edit out the unnecessary scenes. The same theme of refinement extends into your financial landscape, an area where Sagittarius often acts like the cosmic nomad who believes the universe will cover dinner simply because the experience was meaningful. You approach money with the same improvisational spirit you bring to spontaneous road trips, trusting that everything will work out because you are adaptable and resourceful. And while that confidence has saved you more times than you admit, it is not the most reliable financial strategy. Today pulls you toward a more grounded approach. The universe, in its subtle but persistent wisdom, nudges you to examine where your money is going, what habits are serving your long-term freedom, and where your generosity may be slipping into self-sacrifice. The twist, and it's an important one, is that for the first time in a long time, you actually have the emotional readiness to handle this kind of structure. You are no longer allergic to planning. You are no longer rolling your eyes at budgeting tools or dismissing long-term strategy as boring earth sign stuff. Something in you recognizes that stability is the soil from which your freedom grows. You want to travel, explore, study, fall in love with life in all its forms, and those things require a foundation strong enough to carry the weight of your aspirations. Sagittarius does not crave wealth for the sake of image or dominance. You want money because you understand, perhaps better than any other sign, that resources buy you options. Options buy you movement. Movement buys you perspective. And perspective is your oxygen. Which means that financial maturity is not a limitation, it is liberation. It is the key that unlocks the life you have imagined but never fully structured. In the year of triumph 2025, your financial freedom becomes more attainable than ever, but only if you are willing to anchor your fire with a little earth. Think of it as building a launch pad. No rocket takes off without one. You are learning that structure does not confine your fire, it amplifies it. And once you understand that, your relationship with money transforms. You plan not out of fear, but out of a desire to support a larger vision. You save not because you dread uncertainty, but because you crave opportunity. And in doing so, you step into the most empowered version of yourself, the Sagittarius who can say yes to life without hesitating, without scrambling, and without draining tomorrow's energy to pay for today's excitement. Love, when filtered through the lens of Sagittarius, becomes one of the most fascinating studies in both astrology and psychology, because this sign does not simply fall in love, it catapults, vanishes, returns with a philosophical revelation, then acts surprised when everyone else looks confused. After years of observing Sagittarians both in charts and in life, I've come to appreciate what I call the Sagittarian time dilation problem. In romance, time does not move at the same pace for you as it does for the rest of humanity. You operate in two dramatically different modes. The first is the classic catch me if you can, where affection is expressed through motion, spontaneity, and a gentle refusal to be pinned down too quickly. The second is the sudden, overwhelming surge of devotion in which you are ready to build a shared empire by next Tuesday, complete with vision boards, plans for a homestead, and ideas for joint ventures. It's as if your heart only recognizes extremes. There is rarely a middle speed, and you treat moderation in love like a questionable suggestion from someone who clearly doesn't understand adventure. In new connections, your energy shifts into what psychologists might call cautious exploration. You are intrigued, curious, sparked by the fresh exchange of ideas, but you also remember how many emotional gymnastics routines you have performed in the past. Those experiences have left you with a deeper wisdom than most people give you credit for. You are not afraid of intimacy, you are afraid of repeating cycles that demanded flexibility you never volunteered for. So you take your time, you observe, you give small but meaningful signals, and you allow trust to build the way an archer draws a bow slowly, intentionally, with an awareness that clarity requires distance before it requires closeness. For those in long-term partnerships, today may stir a bit of old emotional dust. It's nothing catastrophic, nothing that requires dramatic exits or frantic reassurances. Think of it like clearing your browser cache. Annoying, yes, but ultimately refreshing. A small misunderstanding or a forgotten conversation might resurface, not to haunt you, but to offer a chance to sweep away residue that has been sitting quietly in the background. Sagittarius thrives when the emotional air is clear, and this moment gives you an opportunity to restore that clarity without overhauling the entire relationship. It's maintenance, not crisis. And if you are single, you are radiating in a way that commands attention. More than one person may be drawn to your energy right now. Sagittarian charisma has always been its own gravitational pull. People respond not just to your humor or your confidence, but to the sense that life feels wider and more meaningful in your presence. Yet among those admirers, one particular individual stands out. Their energy aligns with yours in a way that feels unexpectedly effortless. Conversations feel like they breathe, humor arises naturally, and for the first time in a long while, you catch yourself listening instead of rehearsing your exit strategy. This is a rare moment of relational ease for a sign whose instinct is to prepare for the nearest escape route. Still, the universe encourages caution. Do not sprint toward the finish line before the story has even begun. You already know you can run, the challenge now is to walk, to stay present, to allow the connection to unfold with a slower and more grounded rhythm. Patience, presence, and a steady burn are the cosmic instructions. I know this is not your default tempo. Sagittarius prefers the rush of ignition to the discipline of pacing. Yet timing is everything, and the universe has a way of rewarding those who let things unfold rather than forcing an acceleration. This need for consistency is not confined to matters of the heart. Career and purpose are entering one of the strongest cycles you have experienced in years. Your focus sharpens, your work ethic steadies, and your ideas seem to carry a resonance that feels almost divinely timed. But for all your brilliance, your professional life has historically followed the same pattern as your romantic life, bursts of genius followed by mysterious disappearances. One day you are delivering visionary insights, and the next you are halfway across the state with a backpack, a new philosophy, and a story that begins with "You will not believe what happened." Your colleagues admire you, but they secretly keep score on how long you will stick around before the wind carries you elsewhere. Yet 2025 requires a steadier, more long-term version of you. This is not about dampening your fire, it is about harnessing it. You are laying foundations now, real, durable ones. A reputation is forming, a legacy is taking root, a decade of future momentum is quietly aligning behind your daily choices. You are no longer building for the moment, you are building for your future self, the version of you who wants more than adventure, who wants impact, influence, and a life that stretches beyond temporary inspiration. If you are job hunting, an opportunity will appear soon. It may not be the final destination, but it will elevate your confidence and help you rebuild a sense of direction. Think of it as the first foothold on a mountain you are destined to climb, not the summit itself. It will remind you of your capability and give you the momentum needed to pursue greater achievements. In both love and purpose, the message is consistent: you are being asked to evolve your timing, to observe your patterns, to refine your impulses, and to embrace a steadiness that enhances rather than limits your natural fire. You are not being told to slow down forever, you are being invited to move with rhythm, awareness, and longevity, qualities that, when mastered, elevate Sagittarius from a brilliant wanderer into a true force of destiny. Family and home, for Sagittarius, often function like quiet spiritual greenhouses where growth happens not through dramatic revelations but through subtle, almost imperceptible shifts. In this season, the atmosphere around your personal life is warming in a steady, reassuring way. Old misunderstandings begin to lose their emotional voltage, disagreements that once felt sharp now soften at the edges, and conversations that were previously avoided seem less intimidating. Healing, in its truest form, rarely announces itself with trumpets. It creeps in through ordinary moments, shared meals, unexpected laughter, the simple relief of being understood without explanation. Yet within this gentle harmony, you may find yourself stepping into a supportive role, offering emotional steadiness or practical guidance to someone in your circle who has been quietly struggling. It's worth noting that Sagittarius often becomes the emotional anchor of a group without ever intending to. People gravitate toward your optimism the way plants instinctively tilt toward sunlight, relying on your broad perspective and moral encouragement in ways you sometimes barely notice. Still, there is an essential distinction between helping and absorbing. Support is compassionate, self-sacrifice is corrosive. You are finally learning how to offer your strength without giving away your equilibrium, and that balance marks a profound moment of maturation. This theme of inner balance extends directly into your spiritual work for the day, which is deceptively simple: stay present, stay organized, stay aware. Sagittarius energy tends to scatter itself across a constellation of possibilities, each one more exciting than the last. It's part of your charm, your curiosity, your expansive mind, your ability to see 20 potential futures in the space of a single conversation. But in practical terms, this mental fireworks display can leave you scattered, exhilarated, and slightly confused about where your day actually went. And when sunset arrives and you mutter, who stole my time, the universe has to gently clear its throat and remind you that you, Sagittarius, are the joyful culprit. You surrendered those hours willingly, enthusiastically, with the same confidence you bring to every questionable multitasking decision. Yet beneath this cosmic teasing lies a deeper spiritual lesson. You are learning self-mastery, not the rigid or punitive kind, but a grounded awareness that amplifies your freedom rather than restricting it. Presence sharpens your intuition, organization fuels your ambition, and awareness protects your energy from spiraling into distractions disguised as inspiration. Compatibility today echoes this theme of emotional intelligence and calibrated connection. Pisces, with their intuitive softness, offers a depth of emotional resonance that feels both comforting and expansive. Conversations flow with a gentle honesty that encourages mutual healing. Libra brings balance and harmony, smoothing edges, and offering clear communication that aligns beautifully with your current need for clarity. And another Sagittarius, though chaotic in the most delightful way, mirrors your fire with enough self-awareness to create a rare moment of synchronicity rather than confusion. It is one of those days when your natural magnetism finds the right kind of company. All of this culminates in what can only be described as a turning point in your personal narrative. You are standing on a threshold between the version of yourself shaped by past survival and the version emerging from new wisdom. The universe is gently clearing away outdated habits, unhelpful emotional patterns, and stale assumptions, not as punishment, but as preparation. You are entering a chapter defined by emotional clarity, financial maturity, romantic alignment, and spiritual depth. This is bigger than a fresh start, it resembles a renaissance, a return to your highest expression. And true to form, Sagittarius, you are walking into your year of triumph 2025 not with timidity but with the boldness of someone who has finally understood their role in the world. You are, and always have been, one of the chosen ones, not in some mystical hierarchy, but in the sense that you are designed for transformation, discovery, and meaning-making. So step forward with conviction, savor the humor in your own contradictions, and remember that joy is not a reward but a practice. Let yourself revel in the freedom you've earned, nurture the relationships that uplift you, and trust the momentum building beneath your feet. And if this message resonates with the truth stirring inside you, I invite you to like the video, share it with someone who needs this guidance, and subscribe to my channel, Zodiac Talks Tarot, so you never miss the insights that help illuminate your path. The journey ahead is vast, and I look forward to walking it with you.